don't generate revenue. Isn't that crazy? How can you run an organization, make global change in an organization that needs money that can't generate money? But anyway, it lives off the charity model and donations. It's a very unsustainable way to try to accomplish any sustainable change in the world. But listen, not-for-profits have the right heart, the right passion, the right mission. They make a huge contribution to the world. But it's hard for a not-for-profit to bring sustainable change to an issue like malnutrition, because kids don't need good nutrition a couple times a year when you do a fundraiser. They need it every day of their lives. So anyway, we were running this charity, doing the best that we could. I love Mother Teresa's quote, if you can't feed 100 kids, feed one. Mm-hmm. Right? So 6 million kids were dying. We were feeding about 40 to 50,000 a day. So our motto is, if you can't feed 6 million, feed 50,000. I mean, whatever it took, make a difference in as many lives as you possibly can. And so I was building my business, building my charity, life was going along, and then 2008 came along. And when 2008 hit, the economy took a nosedive, and so did our contribution base at our charity. Just like anybody running a charity that was international at the time, even domestic, 400 charities went out of business in this country alone in less than a year. Because the database of givers just completely shrunk up. And we lost 60% of our donors in a year to 18 months. And I mean, you know, to us, it's not a big deal. We live, we have a good business. But 60% of the kids we were nourishing all of a sudden went back to square one, which is malnutrition. Now their lives are compromised, and they have a high risk of dying of malnutrition-related issues. And that just wasn't acceptable. I mean, there's nothing, the only thing worse than kids not having good nutrition is to give it to them and then take it away. I'm telling you, the caregivers noticed it immediately, and they were just heartbroken, and so was I. And so I decided I'm going to do everything I can to try to find a new model for raising funds. And my wife and I prayed about it. We said, God, you know our hearts for this. Show us a way, because I can't figure this out. And my answer to prayer came a couple of weeks later when somebody sent me an article from Harvard Business Review. This is the top business school in America. And the article was entitled, Can Entrepreneurs Save the World? Now I'm an entrepreneur, I want to change the world. Gotta read that article, right? And it was all about this revolutionary new way of doing business called social entrepreneurship. And so what is social entrepreneurship? It's taking the cash flow and the product technology of a for-profit company and linking it to the heart and the passion and the mission of a not-for-profit organization in order to bring sustainable change to the world's biggest problems. Problems that governments can't deal with. Why can't governments deal with them? They're too inefficient, too ineffective, too corrupt in many cases, and last but not least, too broke. Companies won't do it because companies so focused on bottom line oftentimes contribute more to the problems that we're trying to solve than bringing solutions. Charities have the heart and the passion, they don't have the sustainable funding. So social business is the last bastion of hope for these types of problems. We're not going to solve global childhood malnutrition without social entrepreneurship. So I read that and I thought, how perfect could that be? Combine what I'm really good and gifted at doing with what I'm most passionate about doing, which is helping kids. So I wanted to integrate social business into my company. We were operating in 26 countries around the world. We were explosive. Here's the problem. I took my company public in 1999. Guess who owns my company now? The public. And by law, you are obligated to your shareholders first and foremost in a publicly traded company. And if in any way you violate that fiduciary responsibility, just stand aside because you're about to get hit with class action litigation. It's just the way it works in the world today. And so my board of directors, who were wonderful people, just could not see taking something out of everything that we sold and linking it to the needs of children. And that was sort of the crossroads in our life. My wife and I sat down and looked at each other and said, what are we going to do with the rest of our lives? You know, we've been successful. We've done a lot of wonderful things. We've got a great family, wonderful children. But God called us to a purpose that was greater than ourselves. And when that happens, I'm sorry, nothing else works other than to fulfill the destiny that you feel called to. And so we resigned from the company that I founded, built, was the chairman of the board and CEO for, to go off on this venture of social business. So for the next 18 months, I started studying the model of social entrepreneurship, social business, to define what makes a social business work. How does it succeed? What is the best case scenario? What is the template for success? And how do I incorporate that into a company that has the infrastructure that can proliferate it around the world? And here's what I found. First of all, it was very difficult to find a template for success because it's so new. Not many people have really succeeded with it. Not on a global basis. Social entrepreneurship has basically been regionalized based off of the type of companies and corporations that have been built around it. How many of you have heard of Tom Shoes? Okay, Tom Shoes is a social business. Blake McCalskey is a young guy that saw when he was on a mission trip that kids were being denied education for the simple fact that they didn't own a pair of shoes, right? And the rule was you have to wear your shoes to school. Kids didn't have shoes, couldn't go to school. He said, somebody's got to fix that problem. He couldn't find anybody donating shoes. So he said, well, I'll just start a business. I'll sell shoes, and for every pair I sell, I'll donate a pair. That's called social business. Now, that may not be the most pressing issue in the world, but to him, that was his passion. And look at what Tom Shoes has done today. It's captured the hearts of an entire generation of young people who want their lives, their purchases, what they consume, to be a part of a bigger purpose. And one of the things that I read in the article from Harvard Business Review is that social business is the #1 sought after curriculum by people entering business schools today. Everywhere, all over the world. Again, an entire generation of young people who want their lives to account for more than just a paycheck. And social business gives them the capacity to do that. I also read an article on retiring people, the baby boomers, that are now entering a phase of their life where they've worked their entire lives just for a paycheck, and they want the rest of their lives to account for something more. Gosh, what a great group of people to plug into social business. Immigrants who come to this country looking for opportunity, want to be a part of a world-changing idea. So all spectrums of society are open for social business. So as I was looking for a template, I finally found one in a magazine called Inc. magazine. You can find it at Barnes & Noble, but in 2011, they came out with a cover story on social entrepreneurship. And when you review the article, it said the model works best when 3 things occur. And any one of them can drive a social business. If you can do 2 of them, it's better if you get 3 of them. You're almost ensured success. Number 1, connect your consumer directly with your cause. In other words, don't say we sell tires and give 1% to the United Way. What does that mean to the consumer? It doesn't mean anything. Does anybody know what the United Way does? I don't know what the United Way does. I think they're good, but I don't know what they do. In other words, that doesn't connect me to a cause. So they said the best way to do that is the 1-for-1 model, like Tom Shoes. You don't have to be passionate about shoes, but here's what you know as a consumer. When I buy a pair of shoes, a child gets a pair of shoes, right? So I can connect the consumer directly to the need of whatever my mission is fulfilling. So in nutrition, if our goal is to address global malnutrition, why don't we feed a child? Why don't we nourish a child every time we sell a product, right? So 1-for-1, that's good. That's number 1. Number 2, and this is where most social businesses don't quite ante up. They said the product being sold to the consumer should drive the same social impact as the donation being given to the child. What do they mean by that? It means that you got to be addressing the need of your consumer as much as you're addressing the need of the child who's receiving, the donation. So that's where Tom Shoes kind of falls apart a little bit. I buy a pair of Tom Shoes. Does that change my life? No. I'm not in dire need. I'm not being denied education. I'm not being, I'm not sick because I don't have a pair of shoes. Kids somewhere else are. So I'm buying a product, just a commodity, so that the child gets benefited. That violates that rule. So what we've got to find is a product that meets the demand of a group of consumers who are not getting good solutions to their problems. Okay, that's number 2. Make sure that the product that you sell is fulfilling the need in somebody's life. Hey guys, otherwise, we're the Girl Scouts. We might as well be selling cookies, right? I mean, really, that works. The Girl Scouts sell 750 million worth of cookies every year. Not a bad social business, but they violate rule number 2. What benefit is a Girl Scout cookie to my life? We could argue over that, right? But I'm not going to. Okay. Does it support a social cause? Of course it does. You know, but it doesn't bring any value into my life. Okay, so that's number 2. Here's number 3. Find a mass market that is being underserved. Find a mass market where there's a huge demand and there is no product technology that is actually addressing the problem in an effective way. So, find a mass market, create a new solution, bring value to a consumer, and do a one-for-one donation. If you can achieve those things, folks, you can build a global mass market social business. So that's what we started looking at while we were running our pilot. I'd had a lot of experience in integrative health, but that, from a regulatory standpoint, is a very difficult place to go. You find people who have health issues, but if you try to solve them with non-drug approved products, you're always running down that slippery slope of treat, cure, mitigate disease. So what is it out there in the health industry that causes the most pain, if you will, in terms of the consumer base? Here it is. The number 1 health risk in America is called overweight and obesity. It leads to more chronic illness than any other thing that exists out there. So that's what you call a mass market. 75% of adults in this country are now considered overweight or obese. So you got to look at that as a big market, right? No pun intended. That is a big market. So here's the next part of the equation. Is it a well-served or underserved market? I'm here to suggest it's underserved. Why? 95% of the people that lose weight gain it all back again plus some. So in other words, we're using symptom treatment in obesity. We're not getting to the root cause of why obesity occurs. We're just treating the symptom. How do you treat the symptoms? Diet and exercise, diet and exercise, diet and exercise, diet and exercise. And I don't care what the diet is. Diet and exercise is symptom treatment. Why am I saying that? Because science has finally broken out with the answer to why fat accumulates on the human body in the first place. And here's something shocking. It has nothing to do with calories. It has everything to do with hormones. So Ann told you just a little bit about it. I'm going to just go into it just a little bit more so you get it. But let me just tell you this. The site that she said, evolvelifebar.com, write that down, because you can go on your cell phone, on your computer tonight and read this entire thing that I'm going to share with you. Because it's all there. All the science, everything about the bar, what's in the bar, what's not in the bar, why it works, and it's all there. Also, all about the one-for-one, where we give, what we give, why we're different in our giving. Okay, so here's what happens in the human body. Believe it or not, burning fat is normal human physiology. You don't have to trick the body, you don't have to manipulate the body, you don't have to stimulate the body to get fat to burn. You just have to support normal human physiology. So here's how it works. The minute your body starts accumulating fat, fat cells produce and release a hormone. Doesn't come anyplace else in the body, it comes from fat cells. It's called leptin. Leptin goes into your bloodstream and goes up to the brain. In the brain is the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus reads as a receptor sites for leptin. And when there's a lot of leptin in the blood, it tells the body there's a lot of fuel stored up. Cells only burn 2 forms of fuel, sugar and fat. That's it. There is no other fuel for burning in the cellular level. If there's not much fat, then you burn sugar. If there's a lot of fat, the body prefers to burn fat, but it's its only storage for fuel. So it burns fat last because it's protecting you against starvation. So the minute you start telling the body you got plenty of fat, guess what? The body starts burning fat. Hey guys, you don't have to manipulate your body to do that. You just have to support it appropriately. Leptin tells the brain there's fat, body wants to burn it. You don't have to trick it. You don't have to manipulate it. Body wants to burn fat. How cool is that? Body wants to burn my fat. I haven't been experiencing that for a while, right? Why? Because leptin becomes resistant. And the way it becomes resistant is through chronic inflammation. What causes chronic inflammation? Ann talked about it. Poor gut health. Too much sugar. Too many trans fats. Too much processed food. I saw a study, and it's on the site. If you go to the site, you'll see some little videos. There was a study done on consumers. Okay, when you go to the go up to the, yeah, see that? Go there, now go to resources. So these are, and then scroll up a little bit. It may take a minute for it to post. There's a bunch of videos on here. These aren't our videos. These are, okay, scroll on. So there's social entrepreneurship. There's all about left. See that one right there, where it's right there on the lower left? Our happy gut bacteria. Okay, so that's a study that was done by a group of doctors on people eating fast food. So they eat fast food and they measure their inflammation. Inflammation goes up immediately upon eating fast food and stays, chronic inflammation stays high for 5 hours. Guess what lowers chronic inflammation immediately when you eat it? Soluble fiber. The minute you eat prebiotic fiber, you feed the good bacteria, the chronic inflammation drops. Okay, so how do you become leptin resistant? You eat too much sugar, too much trans fat, too much processed food, causes inflammation. Inflammation coats the receptor sites for leptin in the brain. So once the receptor sites are coated, then what? Body doesn't see leptin. You got plenty of leptin in the body, but the body doesn't see it. When they first discovered leptin, they did research on mice, and they could make mice gain weight, lose weight just by injecting leptin. And they thought, my gosh, this would be the best obesity drug the world has ever seen. So they started injecting leptin into humans, and guess what? Didn't make any difference. Why? Because they weren't short of leptin. Hey, if you're heavy, obese, you got tons of leptin. That's not the problem. Your brain can't see it. And when your brain can't see it, it takes just the opposite. It has just the opposite effect. So the brain thinks that you are starving. Okay, so when you got plenty of leptin, what does the brain do? It tells the body up the metabolism, so now all of a sudden you got lots of energy. It says lower your hunger because you don't need to eat. You got plenty of stored fat. And 3, it says burn fat for fuel. So that's what happens when leptin touches the brain. That's good stuff, right? When your brain can't read leptin, just the opposite occurs. First of all, the brain thinks you're starving, so it says lower the metabolic rate. Increase hunger and don't burn fat. Have you ever been on a diet when you felt like you were starving all the time, you had no energy, and you couldn't knock off those pounds? That's called leptin resistance. And there's no amount of diet or exercise that will fix that. That is a physiological function that you have to correct. And the good news is you can. You can't do it through any drug. There is no drug that erases leptin resistance. There is no pharmaceutical product or medical procedure. You can only do it through diet. So what do? You don't eat the bad things, and you do eat the good things. You have to have prebiotic fiber. That is the fastest way to reduce chronic inflammation. You have to have healthy fats, the right amount of omega-3s to omega-6s. You have to have vitamins and minerals, because malnutrition also causes inflammation, which causes leptin resistance. So you have to be nourished properly. You have to have a moderate amount of protein, not high protein diet. High protein diet won't fix leptin. You can lose weight on a high protein diet, but half of it is muscle. So if you don't correct leptin, then your body burns sugar. So here's what happens. You go to sleep, your body still needs energy at the cellular level, so it breaks down muscle for sugar. You got fat, but your body's not going to burn fat because it thinks you're starving. So it will only burn sugar. So while you're sleeping, you break down muscle to convert to sugar so you have fuel. So when you lose weight, 50% of it is muscle, 50% of it is fat. But if you don't correct leptin, guess what happens next? Fat comes back with a vengeance. You can't stop it. Now, what is the industry as a whole, this $100 billion diet industry? What do they tell you? They tell you weight regain is your fault, right? You have no discipline. You have no willpower. You're a glutton. You're a pig. You're whatever, right? And so the fat comes back, and everybody around you knows that you had no willpower. Lost all that weight and it came back. Poor Sam, right? He just wasn't strong enough to do. Hey, folks, you didn't have a choice. Your physiology was going to pack fat on you whether you wanted to or not. You can't help it. Okay, so what if we created the first food product that made it convenient to reboot leptin. Because the diet I just talked to you about, anybody can do, but it is not convenient. Imagine getting up in the morning thinking, I gotta have the right amount of fats, right amount of protein, right amount of fiber, no sugar, no this. You know what it's like when you're on the move to try to grab something to eat? That's not convenient. So the most convenient way to do it is pack all of that, the exact proportion to what is necessary to reboot and make leptin functional in a food product, in a functional food. So this is the only product that's ever been developed to reboot leptin and make it work appropriately. That's what the Life Bar is. And it's got a very proprietary ingredient in it called Evolve Immune, which Ann talked to you about. It is the best technology for addressing chronic inflammation from an immune standpoint. So you pack all of that into one bar and it makes it real convenient. So on that site, you'll see the food plan. And go back over to that. Yeah, Reset Food Plan. So when you go to the Reset Food Plan, it has all the information about leptin, and keep going up, keep going. Meat leptin, what's it all about, keep going. There's all the science behind that, keep going. And then here's your reboot phase. This is a 14-day phase. Pick a protein, pick a fat. So you're gonna eat 2 bars a day or more. Somebody said, well, what if I'm hungry? Could I eat 4 bars? You can eat as many bars as you want. This is not a caloric issue. You know, this is physiology. Now, you're thinking, if I just eat 2 bars, I'm gonna be starving to death. No, you're not. Wait till you eat 12 grams of soluble fiber in a bar and healthy fat. You won't be hungry. It won't happen. But if you are, you can eat as many bars as you want. So eat a minimum of 2 bars a day and at least 1 meal. And the meal needs to follow these guidelines. So pick a protein, a healthy fat, pick your fruits and vegetables from the approved list. Here's the 5 rules during the reboot phase. Keep going up. Don't skip meals. Eat 2 or more Life Bars. Increase your fat protein. Keep going. Okay, so then it tells you here's the proteins you can eat. Keep going. And how much. Here's the fats, where they come from. Here's where healthy fats. Approved vegetables. Keep going. Other healthy options, condiments, things like that. Keep going. Okay, so that completes the 14-day reboot. It's really pretty simple. It's all right there. Just eat what's on that list. Then you get into the impact phase, and that expands the amount of carbohydrates you can have, because now you've reset leptin. Everything is okay in moderation. You just don't eat a ton of sugar and a ton of trans fats and a bunch of processed foods. You don't skip meals. Hey guys, when you start doing this, you're going to be shocked at how fast the fat comes off. We've seen it in our pilot programs. It's unbelievable. Okay. So that's the product, and of course Daily is another product that will help support that because it has the probiotics, which are friendly bacteria, has the digestive enzymes, so you get more of the nutrition out of the food that you eat. It's got food-formed vitamins and minerals instead of synthetics. Does anybody know what a synthetic nutrient is? Vitamins are made from petroleum. In 95% of all the vitamins sold in the world are made from petroleum. They're chemical isolates. They're not in a food form. Your body has to really work hard to use them. The body can use them, but most of them get discarded. So we use food form nutrients for the best absorption utilization of nutrients. Okay, so now we have the makings of an incredible social business. We're addressing the #1 health risk that exists not only in this country, but in the industrialized nations of the earth. Is the problem getting better or worse every year? Worse. It's getting worse. Hey, if we're on the same track and we stay on the same progression of overweight and obesity, by the year 2040, 100% of our population will be overweight and obese. So this isn't getting any better, this is getting worse. The diet industry has no solution for that. So what if you had the first solution that could really address that? And what if it came in a flavor of dark chocolate? Would that be okay? Dark chocolate. You know, it's interesting. I was talking to my wife and I said, so I'm looking for a flavor for this bar. She goes, dark chocolate. I go, really? She goes, dark chocolate. Got her friends on the phone. If we could have a flavor, what would it be? Dark chocolate, right? Here's the problem with dark chocolate. It's hard to get it without sugar, right? So we found a company out of San Francisco that would make us a dark chocolate without using sugar. It's incredible. It's good stuff. This is all new technology for addressing this issue. So now we have a product that addresses the #1 issue. It's a proprietary product. We link it to the needs of kids. That is the foundation for social business. So can we really, as an organization, solve this problem? You know, the next thing I look at, and I'll close with this, was what is the best model for distribution for social business? This was a very interesting book. It's called Social Entrepreneurship, What Everybody Needs to Know by David Bornstein. He's got another one that's entitled How to Change the World. Just grab one of these books sometime. It's fascinating. Okay, they talk about the evolution of this thing called social entrepreneurship and how it's going to just dominate businesses of the world. It said social entrepreneurship 1.0 involved a concerted effort to systematically identify people in innovative ideas and practical models for achieving major social impact. So social entrepreneurship 1.0 is just a recognition that entrepreneurs were willing to dedicate their careers to support social change. Okay, that's how it all started. 2.0 shifted the terrain to organizational excellence. It drew heavily on insights from business strategy, finance, management, and was primarily concerned with helping social entrepreneurs build sustainable, high-impact organizations or enterprises. So in other words, when Tom Shoes, that's okay, I'll get it, thanks. So when Tom Shoes connected with Nordstrom's, for instance, it took it off the internet into mass retail. So social entrepreneurs link with organizations that have big infrastructure to help them proliferate their cause. Does that make sense? That was 2.0. But listen to this. This is so cool. Is everybody okay? Mm-hmm. All right. Social entrepreneurship 3.0 will, in the future, look beyond individual founders and institutions to the change-making potential of all people. Say all. All people. It recognizes that social entrepreneurship is contagious. What if you told a story about what you were doing and it was so contagious that everybody wanted to get involved? That'd be somewhat of a switch, wouldn't it? Social Entrepreneurship 3.0 is concerned with building platforms that enable more people at every age to think and behave like change makers and help them work together powerfully in building teams and teams of teams to facilitate the rapid circulation and sharing of solutions on a global scale. Is that crazy? Does that sound like what we could do? Okay, so the network distribution model is the only distribution model that allows all people to participate and profit from social business. The other thing I made a point in that book is that global change never comes through institutions. It never comes through government. It only comes through people movements. Because people have the power to change the world. But you got to get enough people involved to do it. I did a conference on social entrepreneurship a couple of years ago, and the founder of social entrepreneurship was a man named Mohammed Yunus. And he created the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh in an effort to solve global poverty. He impacted the lives of 40 million people in Bangladesh. It was just an incredible story. Won the Nobel Prize for it. So he's sort of the father of entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship. And he said, what no one has done yet is created a 3.0 opportunity. Everything has been regionalized. He said the first group of entrepreneurs that figure out how to link people all over the world for a common cause will have the first global impact in this industry. So we have the opportunity to do that. We have the right kind of products that meet the biggest demands in our industry for better health and quality of life. They're proprietary, they belong to us. We're willing as an organization to donate every time we sell a product to the needs of children. And what if your business development also equated to the same thing? What if every time you hit a rank, more kids got fed? You know? So that's another thing that Evolve is looking and figuring out, how do we do that? Because here's the deal. When I call my friends, I want to have a meaningful conversation with them, right? I don't want to just talk to them about business opportunity. Gosh, they've heard that 1,000 times. I want to tell them that I'm doing something of significance with my life because it'll change my life and theirs at the same time. So I would call Brig and I'd say, hey, Brig, I know I haven't talked to you for a while. I just want to catch up on what's going on. As Brig always says, so what's happening with your life first? What's going on in your life? Let me find out something that's happening with you now. Let me tell you what I'm doing, right? I've just joined an organization that is dedicated to solving the problem of childhood malnutrition. It is the craziest thing that I have ever seen. They actually compensate people like you and me for championing that cause. Now, my goal is to help impact 200 kids, 600 kids. Let's say I want to be a diamond, that would be 800 kids. My goal is to impact 800 kids this year. Now, you may not want to do what I'm doing, Brig, but I want to sit down with you and show you how you can help me save the life of at least one child. When can we get together? Let me tell you something that will change everything. That will change how people perceive what you're doing, why you're doing it, and it will open the floodgates for people to talk to you. You'll have the most meaningful conversations you've ever had in business with that. You think I'm just saying that because I think that? I'm saying it because I know. And let me give you this example, and I'll close with this. When I was looking for distribution partners around the world, I was looking for people that could help me distribute my product in different regions of the world. Sometimes it was a big church. In Guatemala, a pastor by the name of Cash Luna has a church called Casa de Dios. They have the best outreach in Guatemala for nourishing kids. So that was my distribution partner there. Sometimes it's a global relief organization like Convoy of Hope. They predominantly fed kids all over Central America for me. Sometimes it's individuals. Very rarely does an individual have enough clout to do it. But I was at a fundraiser in Dallas, Texas a few years ago, and the guest speaker was the former president of Mexico, Vicente Fox. Incredible individual. Brought the 21st century into Mexico, basically ushered in free enterprise and democracy. Just an incredible individual. So I wanted to go see him speak. So he's the guest speaker at this fundraiser. Afterwards, they said, if you'd like to talk to President Fox, he'd be glad to meet you. So after the meeting, I waited around, stood in line, and when it became my time to meet him, we shook my hand and he said, so who are you and what do you do? And I said, well, I'm Sam Castor and I'm a social entrepreneur. And I've developed the most advanced technologies for addressing childhood malnutrition that the world has ever seen. And through my business, I actually fund that activity. And he didn't say, wait a minute, are you trying to get me into one of those things? No. Here's what President Fox said to me. He said, how you doing it in Mexico? And I said, well, actually, I don't have a good distribution partner there. And this is honestly what he said next. He said, do you think that my wife and I might qualify? That's the president of the country. One of the things that they're going to show you to do to start this business is make a list of people you know, right? Would you put the president of Mexico on that list? Probably not. Why? Too big, too important. Got too many things going on in his life. Let me tell you something. Do not prejudge anybody you've ever met. When you start talking about saving the lives of children, I'm telling you, you can talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere, and have a meaningful conversation.
Folks, you better get excited.
So, what happened next? What happened next is my wife and I flew to Mexico, met with the Foxes, and they became our distribution partners. Guess what? They did qualify. And they've been feeding 5,000 kids a day ever since, and they're great partners in Mexico. The point is, social business will change the way that you perceive success in this industry. It will open up the floodgates for you to talk to everybody you know. So, we have an incredible cause, we have an incredible mission, we have a legitimate business that can bring wealth to millions of people around the world. Here's the thing I found about social business. It's always about the money, but never about the money. The best quote I ever read on social business is, wealth is never the objective of a social entrepreneur. It is simply the byproduct of succeeding in their mission. So here's the question. Can we get to 6 million kids a year?
Yeah.
That's the question. Okay, we're all excited. Of course we're going to yell yes. Let me give you the math, okay? 1.4 billion people on this planet, according to the World Health Organization, are now overweight or obese. That's what you call a market. 1.4 billion, that's with a B. If our innovative new solution to obesity would touch the lives of 1/3 of 1% of that market, that would be 7 million consumers.
Wow.
7 million consumers would eradicate childhood malnutrition on the planet. I'm telling you, we can get that job done. Bless him.